Hello everybody, this is Shri and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we'll be talking about the November 19th lunar eclipse. As you would have seen in my last video, I have talked about generally what happens during eclipses and how to make predictions based on eclipses. Now, but today we're going to apply those concepts to the upcoming lunar eclipse, which is going to be very eventful. November 19th at around 3 degrees of Taurus, Scorpio, that axis, we will be having a lunar eclipse. Now this lunar eclipse is going to be with Moon and Rahu in Taurus and Sun and Ketu in Scorpio. Okay. So what this means is when it is happening around 3 degrees, there's a lot of indications regarding this lunar eclipse. You know, the fact that it's in the sign of Taurus and Scorpio, the fact that it's at 3 degrees, you know, the Nakshatras that they fall in. We are going to look at each of these things in detail, just so you understand what to expect in the coming months. Because remember, I talked about this in my last video on eclipses. Every time an eclipse happens, there's a lunar eclipse, there's a solar eclipse, and then there's going to be a 5 to 6 month period before the next solar eclipse. So whatever we are seeing now, happening now, is going to be, the impact is going to be spread over the next 6 months. And we look at the trigger points during that 6 months, okay? So coming back to the lunar eclipse, on November 19th, you had this lunar eclipse. But before that, on November 17th, there is another event that is happening. Mars is going to oppose Uranus at the exact degree. Now, historically, any connections or hard aspects between Mars and Uranus has been difficult because Uranus is sudden, unexpected, events. And Mars is anger and frustration and just rebellion, right? It's fighting because it's the red planet. People's emotions are at a high. So when this is going to happen, and Mars also does signify fire, explosion, right? All of that. So when this happens on like 2 days before the eclipse, there can be a lot of indications. The first and foremost indication that I have seen with connections between Mars and Uranus is issues around rebellion, right? There can be revolution. There can be sudden anger, sudden explosions. There can be, and remember, this is happening, Uranus is in Aries, which is the pioneer. It's the first sign of the zodiac, right? So there are new inventions, there are new discoveries. Remember, Uranus also stands for technology. It stands for outer space, extraterrestrial stuff, UFOs, right? So it's not all bad. There can be some new developments in technology. There may be some new discoveries and such, because Mars gives a push. It gives a kind of like a direction. It's like, let's get this done, right? So when Mars and Uranus come together, it's not all bad. There can be some good outcome out of it. But historically, what I've seen is, when we talk about Earth and the changes on the planet, I've seen a lot of earthquakes happening around that time whenever Mars is conjunct Uranus or Mars is opposing Uranus, and it's sudden and unexpected. And then you can also see some rise of anger, and because Mars is in the sign of Libra. Libra has to do with judgment and justice and the scales, and it's like people are up in arms about justice. They're on a mission for justice, right? So there can be some riots, or there can be some people are out there, they are revolting against things, right? They think they're doing the right thing, and there can be some outbursts, right? There can be some explosions because that's Mars. And so watch for that on like around the 17th time frame. So that's the first thing that happens. Right after that, in around 2 days, November 19th is when the eclipse happens. Remember, we talked about this. The eclipse is when the sun and the moon come in conjunction with the nodes. So Rahu is in Taurus right now. Ketu is in Scorpio, right? They've been there for a while. Now, Moon is going to join Rahu in Taurus, and Sun is going to join Ketu in Scorpio. And when Moon and Sun are around 3 degrees, they are exactly opposing each other, which is a full moon. So this causes a lunar eclipse because the nodes are there and there's Sun and Moon opposing each other. Now, typically, you may not see that much of a connection between the nodes and the sun and the moon because of the orb, the distance between them. But this time, the orb is very small, so it is pretty much conjunct the nodes. So it's going to be very impactful. Okay. So what does this mean? 3 degrees of Taurus and Scorpio, right? That's the axis we are talking about. In your personal charts, if you have any planets at around 3 degrees of Taurus and Scorpio, or aspected by those degree points, remember that's going to be the area that's going to be like upfront, or it's going to be most impacted in the next 6 months, because whatever is happening now will bring out things into the open. It will expose secrets, and then over the next 6 months you will see the aftermath until the next eclipse, right? So this is the eclipse point, the 3 degree Taurus and Scorpio. So remember that. That's how it's going to be in the personal charts. Okay, it's not all bad, like I said in my last video. It's just that, when Scorpio is like the natural 8th house. And, when an eclipse happens in that axis, what happens is it's like, so yes, there may be some churn, there may be some revelations, some, things coming out into the open in those areas of your life. But ultimately, you're going to grow out of that learning and experience. That's how it works. So that's personal charts. Let's put that aside. Now let's look at what is going to happen with the signs and the nakshatras in which this eclipse is happening. It is in the Taurus Scorpio axis. Now, what does Taurus stand for? Taurus stands for Earth, right? It's an Earth sign. It's it stands for finance and economy. In the next 6 months, you're going to see a lot of changes in this area. Some things are going to come out into the open, which may impact the economy, which may impact the financial system, right? And that impact will not happen right away. Things are going to come out into the open now, but the impact will happen when? Around the January-February timeframe, when Mars crosses this eclipse point. Remember, in the last video, I talked about this, right? You have the eclipse happening. Then you have the solar eclipse happening. Remember the degree point. And in a month or 2 months from then, Mars is going to cross over this eclipse point, and that is the trigger. That is when the event happens. Okay, so when that happens around the time of January, February, you will see the trigger event happening, and then the aftermath of that will then last for the next few months till the next eclipse. That's how it works. So with Taurus, it stands for Earth. It stands for even earthquakes, mainly because, remember that Mars-Uranus conjunction happening right before that. So I think that is connected to the eclipse happening in Taurus. So there could be some earthquakes. Climate changes, that's Taurus. Finance and economy, because it's the natural 2nd house and natural 8th house, Taurus and Scorpio. So finance and economy can be impacted. Food and agriculture, another major area for Taurus. Okay, food, because the 2nd house, Taurus is the natural 2nd house, and the 2nd house deals with what you put in your mouth. It's food. Okay, and Taurus is also big around issues of safety and security, because it has to do with the root chakra. So a lot of people are going to feel those emotions, like they may feel unsafe, they may feel like there's no security, they may feel like they need to take care of themselves in this time frame. So there may be events that trigger those kind of feelings. Okay, so that's Taurus. Okay, now the next one, Scorpio. That's the next house on that axis. Scorpio is an intense zodiac sign. It's one of the most intense zodiac signs where an eclipse can happen. Okay, now remember, Sun is in Scorpio right now. So if your birthday is any time around now, in this time frame when the eclipse is happening, this coming year is going to be monumental for you. I've seen people who have birthdays around eclipse time having more impact or more the flavor of that eclipse in their lives in the coming year. Okay. And remember, eclipses have to do with the moon. So moon it rules your emotion. So this coming year can be very emotional for you if your birthday falls around the eclipse. Okay. That's one thing. Now, Scorpio is the natural eighth house. It's a house of deep, dark secrets, mysteries, bringing out things into the open, research. Okay, a lot of research is going to happen in the next 6 months, maybe for the vaccine or the medication for COVID, or it can be something around the COVID situation. There can be a lot of research happening. Maybe that's a good thing, right? We need this eclipse in Scorpio in that way. A lot of hidden secrets will come out in this coming time frame in the next 6 months. And also, eighth house has to do with space, outer space, extraterrestrials, UFOs. So you may see increased UFO activity. You may see increased like projects by NASA, right? More outer space exploration stuff happening. And we will come to the trigger point that's going to happen in January to February, which that's when Mars goes over this eclipse point, and there could be a trigger which may not be a good thing, but it's going to impact space exploration and such things. But that is the flavor of the coming 6 months. Okay. Now you talked about the two signs. Now what are the nakshatras? The eclipse is happening in the nakshatra Kritika in Taurus. What does Kritika stand for? Kritika stands for sharp objects. It stands for sword, knife, flame, fire, large crowds. Okay? These are the areas that you will see events in, issues or things happening. Or remember, eclipses are always transformative in the way it works. So there can be a big event that happens, which could be difficult for everybody to handle. But then out of that event, change comes about. There can be transformation that comes about. So when Kritika, it rules all of these areas which have to do with sharp objects, swords, knives, flame, fire, explosions, and large crowds. This is going to, cause transformation in any of those areas, right? That's one thing. And the other thing also is, it's a very important thing happening, which is in Taurus. The degree point of this eclipse is extra special this year because that 3-degree mark is the fixed star Algol. Okay, and this is very, very important. The fixed star Algol at around 3 degrees, remember these are sidereal degrees of the zodiac. Okay, we are not talking about Western degrees. So if you want to see sidereal degrees in your chart, you can go to my website, pull up the free chart calculator and calculate your chart, and you can see all the degrees of the planets in your chart. Now, the fixed star Algol is the most treacherous that we have ever known in history. The mythology behind the star is it's the severed head of Medusa when Perseus slayed her, right? So when you talk about a severed head, the star itself, it stands for decapitation. It stands for any kind of head injuries, but it doesn't literally have to be like that. It's a symbology as well. So it can mean losing your mind because of events around you. It can mean heads of state. People like the heads of state could step down, they could resign in the next 6 months. You'll see a lot of that happening because whenever an eclipse happens in Algol, it does really bring out the flavor of that fixed star. Okay. And then another thing also is Pluto is trining this eclipse point. So no matter what happens in the coming 6 months, because of the impact of Pluto on that eclipse point, the event is going to be extremely transformational. There are going to be new rules that come out. There are going to be new changes in society based on the events that are going to transpire in the coming 6 months. And in the US chart, there's more impact. So what I'm seeing happening is that there's going to be more changes in the United States, but then those changes are going to ripple across the world. Okay. Now coming to the countries and more popular personalities that I saw most impacted. And of course, I don't have everybody's charts. I've been just looking at mostly heads of state and country charts. The main impact that I'm seeing for the country China. because the 10th house of China, the nation's chart, falls on the eclipse point. So there's going to be some changes there because of this eclipse in the next 6 months. Then Spain and Israel. Okay. Now, when you talk about heads of state, President Biden has his sun right on the eclipse point because he was born around this time frame. So, and whenever I've seen, whenever the sun is on the eclipse point, what happens is sun is your vitality, it's your energy. He can feel a little drained out. He can feel a little tired in the coming 6 months. There can be some health issues or something. So, it just really does drain your energy. And that you can feel a little down because of that, and maybe loss of confidence because that's sun as well. And another person I've seen having more impact in their chart is Nancy Pelosi, because Nancy Pelosi's Mars, natal Mars, is exactly at 3 degrees of Taurus. That is the fixed star of Algol, and that's where this eclipse is happening. So there can be some events which could cause her Mars to get triggered, which could be sudden anger, sudden explosions where she's not happy about what's going on and such things in the next 6 months. So these are the main changes that I'm seeing. But in your personal chart, make sure you go to my website and pull up the free chart calculator and pull up your chart and see if you have any planets around the 3-degree mark of Taurus or Scorpio or aspected by that 3-degree mark. Those are the areas you will see a lot of things coming out, which will eventually cause healing and transformation. And it'll be a good thing in the long run. But right now it may feel a little difficult because nobody likes change, right? So that's how it's going to impact people personally. Okay. So that's what I wanted to talk about this upcoming lunar eclipse. I will be making more videos on the events that I talked about, because remember, this lunar eclipse happens on November 19th, and 2 weeks later happens the solar eclipse, which could culminate in one event, which, that solar eclipse is in the first week of December. But the actual trigger planet in any world prediction is the planet Mars. And Mars is going to go over this eclipse point in the end of January and early February, that time frame. So that time frame when Mars crosses over this eclipse point is when there's going to be a trigger event in any of these areas that we talked about, the Taurus areas, the Scorpio areas, any of those areas. So that's what we will have to watch out for. Okay. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about the eclipse, and I hope this video was useful. And like I always say, make sure you subscribe to my channel and go to my website, vedicliving.com. I am selling my recordings on Gemini astrology over there. And you can also sign up for my free newsletter, which I send out at the end of every month, which will predict the events for the upcoming month. And it will be a free newsletter. It will be sent to your email every month. It's called the News from the Cosmos. And also don't forget to use the free chart calculator and calculate your chart and see if any of these degree points impact you personally. I'll see you next time. Thank you.